Hey, I'm Katie Kimball from KitchenStewardship.com, and I am here today to talk with Lydia Shatney of Divine Health from the Inside Out, and Bethany Wright, one of my incredible contributing writers who's been a reader and friend at Kitchen Stewardship for years and years. We are here to talk about a really important topic, and that's adrenal health. I don't really know where my adrenals are, what they're doing, but I know that they're impacting my body. And we are going to learn so very much more today with Lydia and Bethany about not just when your adrenals are taxed, but how to generally keep your adrenals healthy so that they can support your whole body health. I'm really pleased to introduce Lydia, who is a nutritional therapist, I believe. Is that right?
Yes.
And why don't you tell us just quickly about your background as a mom and also as a professional?
Thanks. I am a mother of four boys. I'm a single mother, and they keep me pretty busy.
I bet.
So I have 16, 12, 10, and 8. And I'm a nutritional therapist. I went to NTA, which is Nutritional Therapy Association, several years ago, and got some training there and started working with people one-on-one to help them kind of get game plans going for improving their health. And recently, in the last year, started working with hair tissue mineral analysis to help us dig deeper and get better clues about what's going on in the body. And that's been really cool, really eye-opening and useful. So pretty much everyone I take now gets a hair test done, and it's a great starting point to really see what's going on. So it's been a lot of fun and very useful.
Okay, and then just so that people kind of understand what you do you work with in-person clients or anywhere, or and what kind of goals do people have when they come to see a nutritional therapist?
Well, I work virtually online, so I can work with anyone who has a phone or internet.
Awesome.
So yeah, I work out of my home, and I work with people one-on-one through phone calls typically. Usually people are coming because they just feel bad and they want to feel better.
Okay.
And they may have all kinds of health problems. They may be working with doctors and on medications and things like that. And my job isn't to treat or diagnose or anything like that. I simply help the foundations of their body to work better, basically. So we, talk about food, we talk about lifestyle, stress, exercise, sleep, and then through the hair analysis, we can get very specific supplementation plans for the individual.
Okay, sounds good. And my poor husband is the guinea pig for some hair analysis and supplementation here in our household. So we'll be reporting on the blog how that goes once he gets through some of his regimen from Miss Lydia there. And so Bethany Wright is a contributing writer at Kitchen Stewardship, and she kind of has personal experience in herself and in her family with adrenal health in general. So Bethany, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself, tell us your role at KS, your family, and why you're here on this call.
Yeah, I'd be honored to. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
So I have been a contributing writer for about 1 year, and I have absolutely loved it. And Katie has been gracious to let me write for her. And I started having adrenal fatigue symptoms when I was in middle school. I noticed that it really started, I would get up out of a chair really quick and I would get really dizzy and just thought, oh, this must be normal. Startled really easy, and those symptoms just never went away. And my fingers would get really cold, and it wasn't until our daughter started experiencing some of those. I have 2 children. And it wasn't until our oldest started experiencing some adrenal fatigue symptoms, not those, something else, and that I realized, I probably should look into this and take better care of it.
So how did you know that it was called adrenal fatigue? Because if I stood up and got dizzy, I wouldn't think, oh, my adrenals must be having trouble.
Yeah, I didn't. It wasn't until a friend who had researched it said, hey, have you heard of this? And I looked at a list of a whole bunch of symptoms and went, oh, my goodness, I definitely have all of those. Imagine that. What a coincidence.
So you were an adult when you figured it out, but you could look back all the way to middle school and realize.
I could, yeah. And I just assumed that was just normal, and that wasn't anything with that. And so once I started, and this is how I knew what it was. Once I started caring for my adrenals, almost all the problems cleared up, which was wonderful.
Okay, that's really cool. That's really cool. I kind of want to get into, like, what are these symptoms, but I feel like it's prudent to start at the beginning because, quite honestly, like, I know where my heart is, I know where my lungs are, I can feel when those things are working, but what are our adrenals and what do they do? What jobs are they responsible for in the body?
They're pretty powerful. They're really tiny, so you're not necessarily going to feel them like you would feel your heartbeat. They sit atop of your kidneys. They're about the size of a walnut, and they actually work with every tissue, organ, and gland in the body. So they're really important for your overall health. Most people would not have a clue about this. I never knew until I was an adult either. However, they're so important to your overall health, and taking care of them and learning how to take care of them is prudent for anyone today. Because our modern lifestyle and modern food and toxicity in this world are all going to impair the health of not just the adrenal glands, but our overall endocrine system, to keep it simple.
Okay, so the adrenals are in the endocrine system. So am I right in saying that they are responsible for creating and releasing hormones?
Correct. A number of them.
Okay.
You know, some people will be familiar with the adrenaline when you're in a stress situation or an emergency. Your body kicks up into high gear. That's when you get the adrenaline to kick in. They also produce aldosterone, cortisol, a number of other hormones. We don't need to really go there.
Right.
But you know, typically what people will be familiar with maybe is cortisol. I don't know, but we end up basically using cortisol in a stress response. So anytime you have stress, maybe the stress is a car accident, maybe it's the kids are fighting, maybe it's just chronic busy life, you know, we're going to be pumping out cortisol in those situations. And some people, what will happen is they find themselves in this chronic stress style of life, if you will, and they have this constant need for cortisol, 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 cortisol. And then eventually what can happen is the body's like, okay, I can't make anymore, I'm tired. And so that's kind of, it'll go up and then come crashing down. Some people, maybe Bethany, had lower cortisol when she was young, it sounds like. You know, when you're standing up and getting dizzy, your adrenal hormones are kind of kaput. So nowadays, kids are unfortunately, you know, being born with less adrenal function in general, partly because mom was or has that, you know, so it's becoming more common. And I too, like Bethany, can trace back, and my adrenal health was poor as early teen, so I can relate to her story.
Okay, so this gland is producing what we need to react and adapt to stressors in our life, large and small. And the way you're talking, like, it makes me think of someone's bank account. Like, if they're living kind of a wild modern lifestyle and they're just spending and spending and spending, eventually the bank account runs out, right? And is that kind of like the adrenals? So if we're being busy and stressed and reacting and running all the time, eventually we're going to run out of whatever cortisol our adrenals can handle creating, and then the healthier they are, the more, I know it's not just cortisol, but other, right, all these hormones that keep our systems in check, the more they can keep up. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, for sure. Yeah.
And
okay.
I would also add, because it's easy to say that this only happens to people who spaz a lot or live a highly stressed life, but it can also happen if you have environmental stressors that are impacting you. And I like to think, when I try to describe it to people, I say it's that flight or fight syndrome that gets out of balance. Like sometimes we get those butterflies in our stomach just because we're excited about something or nervous. And that's, again, those are your adrenals that are at play causing that reaction.
Uh-huh. So even if you're not stressed all the time, I mean, it depends on your own adrenal health, how much of those hormones you are able to make, right? So even if you're low stress psychologically, you're seeing like toxins in the environment and the way we eat will determine like how much different hormones that our adrenals can create to keep up.
They can impact it, yeah.
Okay, and your genetics you mentioned. So that's really interesting. I hear the term adrenal fatigue thrown around a lot, and I always, whenever I read a story of like someone suffering from adrenal fatigue, I kind of like slice off the word adrenal, and I just think of it as being really, really tired. But I'm guessing that that's probably a very limited perspective. So what's the difference between fatigue and adrenal fatigue? Like, what does it really look like if your adrenals are taxed?
There's a really great website called adrenalfatiguerecovery.com, and they have a list of a whole bunch of different symptoms. And there's things on there that, like, most people, their fingers, their extremities don't get super cold when they're tired. That's a sign of, but that's yet a sign of adrenal exhaustion. So if you're finding that your fingers and your toes are always really, really chilly, like mine have been ice cold before, that can be a factor.
Okay. Okay. Lydia, do you have any other like things that people can kind of watch for to say that my little walnut-sized glands above my kidneys are stressed out, because we can't feel them or see them?
Right. So there's a lot of stages and phases of, let's call it, that can lead to adrenal fatigue or exhaustion. Basically, we're talking like the exhaustion stage of stress.
Okay.
That's really what adrenal fatigue kind of summarizes. There's also the resistance stage of stress and the alarm stage of stress. So some people are in the alarm stage and their adrenals are overactive. Okay. They may not be healthy. They could be kind of tired, but they're overactive. And the resistance stage of stress, they're kind of coming down. Like I was saying, maybe the stressor isn't even a busy life. Maybe it's a food allergy that they've been eating, something like that.
So the body kind of fights it a little bit and then says, man, we're just tired. We're just tired of fighting this.
The alarm stage is like on alert, high alert, going, the resistance stage is, okay, I'm starting to peter out here, And then the exhaustion stage is like, the adrenal glands may not be able to produce adequate hormone. They're very tired, weak. They're probably not getting all the nutrients that they need to fully function well. Likely the person is depleted in minerals, the important minerals that are needed for these glands to function optimally. So symptoms wildly vary. And so for the exhaustion stage, Bethany was saying that, standing up and getting dizzy, hypoglycemia, the cold hands and fingers are definitely something people experience. But also something that people may not realize is your digestion will slow down. You may tend to have more sensitivities to a lot of foods. You may, just have really slow digestion, constipation, a whole gamut of things. So because the adrenal glands are one of your main energy producing glands in the body. So when they're tired, a lot of things slow down. You might even have some brain fog. You may even have some depression. So those are some things that can be typical. The problem is there's so many possible symptoms that it's hard to pinpoint, oh, this is just because of my adrenals. It's really not a good way to look at it, but suffice it to say, anyone could stand to understand what their adrenal glands are and learn how to kind of support them better,
Yeah, that sounds perfect. I would love to have like can we do a good guy, bad guy list where we just kind of list like, here are some things that you can do to support your adrenal health, and then here are some things that people might do that could really be detrimental to your adrenal health and thus, again, your whole body health. Like if this is responsible for your energy and in your digestion and all these things, it's really important for all of us to have healthy adrenals. So what are some good guys and bad guys in adrenal health? Bethany, do you want to talk? Because I know, I mean, in your experience, you said, and this was really poignant to me, that when you started taking care of your adrenals, all the issues you had been experiencing went away. So you can do the good guy list. What things did you do to support your adrenals?
And I think that you'll find that with the good guy, bad guy list, it can be one, like it's not just do this and don't do this. A lot of things are just changing habits. But
Okay.
something is going to bed early, which is really hard. But your adrenals tend to repair themselves in the evening. And so that's what happens when you get that second wind that keeps you wanting to go to 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 a.m.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
So we try to go to bed by 10 o'clock every night, and it's definitely not easy. And if you have little kids at home, it's a lot harder. But we try to do that. We try to get healthy salt. So sometimes when you have adrenal depletion, it messes with your salt balance in your body. So we try to get lots of good salt. Gentle exercise. I wrote a post about that. That was in May about healthy exercise. And I've also seen where avoiding certain foods can make a difference, particularly foods that are high in potassium, like bananas. And Lydia, I'm sure that you can talk more about that with your nutrition background. It's not that you shouldn't ever eat a banana, because I can be an all or nothing type of person. But just if you find yourself craving them, maybe it's time to take a step back.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lydia.
Yeah. There's definitely, I mean, I agree 100% with Bethany on the sleep. That's the biggest one, really, to be honest, because, like she said, they repair between 11 and 1 a.m. So that's like, anybody can take that advice and start running with it today, because most people aren't doing that, and it is tough. Slowing down your lifestyle if it's busy, finding ways to cut things out, say no to, being super mom. You don't have to be the homeroom mom, and you don't have to do the snacks for the soccer game, and you don't have to volunteer at church, and you don't have to do everything. You can't. So moms tend to be the ones that I see more, so they are, that's why I'm saying that. So slowing your lifestyle down in any way you can, finding more chance to do relaxing things, restful things. Exercise, like Bethany said, that's very good, because I will have people who, on their hair analysis, we can see, hey, you have really slowed down adrenals right now, and they're doing like 6 days of hardcore workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of wondering, how are you doing that? But I think the mentality we have in this culture is go, 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 work hard, do, more.
Right, no pain, no gain.
So, but that's not the truth, unfortunately. So, some people can handle a little bit more intense workouts, but if you want to repair and heal, you'll need to take a step back and not overdo it on the exercise for sure. As far as food goes, it's really tricky because everyone's going to be different.
Sure.
But avoiding food sensitivities and allergies, which you may not always know for sure, because if it's not an anaphylactic response or extreme response, you might not know. So typically you want to work with someone on that.
But it's a question worth asking. In other words, if your adrenals seem to be in poor health, you can ask what kinds of environmental or food stressors might I be experiencing, and do I feel off or something after certain foods, or try an elimination diet or something like that, and that may actually help the adrenals.
Yeah, it's tough though, because usually people are really tired. So taking on a whole new dietary plan can be really
Yeah.
overwhelming, you know?
Yeah.
So really, to be honest, it would be better for these people to focus on real foods and actually eating enough. Like I said, they're your main energy producing gland, one of them, that is. And if you can't rely on it for energy, where are you going to get your energy from? Your food.
Right.
And so you're going to need to make sure you're not skipping breakfast, you're not eating piddly meals, you're not worried about calories. You want to eat. You want to eat plenty of food, you know, meals, decent snacks. I mean, obviously not binging and eating junk, but real food, healthy food,
Sure.
and not trying to minimize, you know, skimp out on the food because it's important.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it really sounds like getting kind of your rest and relaxation into place is the primary, if I'm understanding right. It also sounds like this is such an anti-American kind of thing. It's like American equals poor adrenal health almost, because we rush, rush, rush. We eat fast. We stay up late. We get up early. When you said skipping breakfast, I mean, I don't do that because I would starve. But I think a lot of people do. The people say, "Oh, I just don't need breakfast," or "I'm just not hungry in the morning," and it's like, really? That doesn't make any sense. Um, and now, what about hydration? Because you mentioned something, Bethany, about RO water, and I think we need to unpack that phrase and that experience a little bit.
Yeah, so I am not a home contractor or do-it-yourself type person, but reverse osmosis goes through a series of filters in order to purify water. And it does a really great job, but one of the downsides is it takes out a lot of the natural minerals that are found in our water. And as we mentioned, salt plays a big role with your adrenals. And what I find is when I drink a lot of RO water and I'm already adrenally depleted, it doesn't really benefit my body as well as it could. So I will add a pinch of salt to get those necessary minerals because our water has minerals in it. But we just, with our RO system, we end up filtering it all out. So adding a little bit of salt, and I've even seen that you can add up to a 1/4 teaspoon to an 8-ounce glass of water. Now, and when I'm talking about salt, we're talking about the salt that Kitchen Stewardship advocates. So your real salt, your pink salt, your Himalayan salt, Celtic salt, not table salt you find at a restaurant. And that mineralization that's in there just really, really can help your body.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So that's kind of on the good guy list. It seems like this whole conversation about adrenal health is really a blend of mental, psychological stuff and physical. Is there one or the other that has more impact on someone's adrenal health or getting out of adrenal exhaustion?
Well, I do think there's a aspect of mental health, but let's talk about it in terms of your mindset maybe more.
Okay.
So we kind of talked about it a little bit, slowing down. The modern American culture is, our mindset is very driven. We almost feel like we have no choice in that. And so I talk about renewing your mind to understand that doesn't have to be kind of this go, go, go lifestyle. And sometimes people have a lot of negative thoughts. Maybe they have memories from childhood that aren't so good. Maybe they've had an experience that was more extreme. You know, I don't want to go into that too much, but you know, there's a lot of things out there, unfortunately, in people's experience that can impact their overall health. So it doesn't have to be totally physical in nature, you know? I mean, obviously that's a big part of it and it's not going to help, but sometimes it could be, you know, a child of an alcoholic and that experience. You know what I mean? So, or going through a divorce or losing a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had some people say they've had a series of traumatic events in their life, and then all of a sudden they crash, you know, and that's when it really hits. So, yeah, that's definitely a big part for sure,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, Lydia, you know, you just mentioned being a child of an alcoholic as an example. And Bethany, you talked about that your daughter was showing some signs and symptoms of adrenal fatigue, and I'm just really curious because, a lot of times if we talk about the diseases of civilization, high blood pressure and high cholesterol and triglycerides and all these things that are measures of our health, they don't seem to impact children. But it sounds like the adrenals are really important for kids. So let's start with Bethany and just tell me, like, how old was your daughter when you started to realize she had these signs, and what did she exhibit? Because you did say they were different than what you experienced.
Mm-hmm. So in the case of our daughter, we really noticed it when she was about 2 years old. I was expecting our third, or let's try that again. I was expecting our second kiddo, and it was the year between her second and her third birthday.
Okay.
And she would have really trouble soothing at night. She would get startled really easy and stay awake for a long period of time. But one of the biggest things, and it was a very interwoven issue, she had a lot of allergies that presented, so that was a lot of physical stress. But she had a really round tummy. And I just thought it was an adorable kid tummy, kind of a Buddha belly. And my friend who had introduced me to this was just like, no, that can be a presentation of adrenal stress. And I thought, I've kind of always struggled with, in my opinion, having a rounded tummy. And I was like, oh, that we should probably start looking at this as a family. So she was going to bed at 11 o'clock at night because that's what we needed to do for child care purposes. She would sleep until 11 when someone would come because I was on bed rest. And so we changed diet, started putting her to bed earlier, did some chiropractic things, and it really helped. And within a matter of months, her belly completely dissolved, like not dissolved, but it went flat, and she didn't have this, we jokingly called it the lead with the tummy, but she didn't have this huge belly anymore. And that was just kind of didn't realize it could impact.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, did she act like actually tired or cranky at all, like in her behavior, or not?
Yeah, she had a lot of fatigue, and I did as well, like, because it was a very stressful time being in and out of the hospital with preterm labor.
Oh my goodness.
So it was an intense season, but by God's grace, He's healed us, and we've been able to move past that, and it's not something that she really struggles with anymore, and I'm thankful. But I also think that it helps that we're mindful of it too, so we make sure they get their sleep, make sure that we can do some of those things to healthfully de-stress.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, that's great. So now, how old is she now?
She's 6 now.
Okay, and so did she just finish first grade, or is she going into in the fall?
We actually homeschool, so
okay.
she'll be going, because I could tell where you're going with the question.
Yeah, stress.
Yeah, and she loves school, and she'll be going into first grade in the fall.
Okay, but it won't be a big, like, have to get out of the house in the morning and all of that craziness. And yeah, I know my daughter, she's finishing first grade, and boy, September and October this year were tough on her with just going, even in kindergarten, because kindergarten was all day. But starting all day school, it's tough on kids. It is stressful. So now, Lydia, what kinds of things do you see that present in kids that parents could maybe watch for? And I guess I don't want to get parents like scared. I guess I feel like I should say, don't be like afraid that your kids are all going to go into adrenal fatigue, blah, 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 because we live in America. The great thing about keeping your adrenals healthy is it's really just, it's get sleep. It's eat things that are good for your body and aren't hurting your body. It's, react to stress well. And obviously these are all general health things that we need to do anyway. So you know what I'm saying? So it's all a good thing. It's all good stuff. It's not like you have to get your kid on medication or anything. But are there notes that parents could watch for specifically in kids that would make them think, oh, okay, maybe my child just needs more sleep or less stress?
Well, honestly, I haven't seen a single kid with healthy adrenal gland function. So you don't need to be scared. It just really is what it is. So anybody could really benefit from helping their kids too. Usually I try to get moms to focus on themselves first, but if mom was fatigued or not quite up to par with her health when she was pregnant, the child will inherit that. If mom had several kids, the third and fourth kid may be a little more depleted. It just is what it is. That's my personal experience, so maybe I'll talk from it in that light. I have 4 kids, so each one that came along, I got further and further depleted because I didn't know, and I wasn't purposely trying to rebuild my health and get in nutrient-dense foods, and I just didn't know. And I think that's very common. It's just our culture, Today, we'll have anywhere from, they have a hard time calming down at night to go to sleep. That's very common. Most parents are struggling with that. And one thing I will say is that anyone can benefit from shutting the lights out and all the electronic devices off a couple hours before bed. And I know a million people are probably mad at me right now, but it's a huge thing that can help. That's a stimulation, depending on what they're watching, for one thing, but also the light from the screen. So turning the TV off, turning off electronic devices, even dimming the lights in your home. You want to go to bed with the sun. So that's one really big thing, and I think a lot of parents are having a hard time in the evenings settling everyone down and getting them to bed at a decent hour. It's very common. So there's no judgment. It's just certainly something we can all, focus on, because children really need more sleep than we do. They need a good 10 to 12 hours. So if their adrenals are already, not up to par, let's just say, they really need their sleep. So I would implore parents to focus on that first, that's one thing. Kids can be apathetic or hyper. They can be tired or wired. They can have digestive problems. They can complain of belly aches. They can have all kinds of things. If it's digestive, it's mood. It can show up in a lot of ways. Kids that present as ADHD type behaviors usually have really exhausted adrenal glands. So, we talk about adrenal health, we're really talking about overall health, It's really not just one set of symptoms or anything like that. It's kind of the whole picture. So it's
Absolutely.
to narrow it down,
Well, and I mean, I think that's the encouragement here, really, is that if you're taking care of your body is more able to function well and take care of itself. And so we're talking about adrenals, but all of these things obviously impact the digestive system, and they impact our ability to think clearly and to learn, and for kids. And that's interesting that you said ADHD diagnoses often present with weak adrenals, because when I was doing research on sleep for a sleep series that I did like maybe 2 months ago at Kitchen Stewardship, I just started thinking about, as I'm reading about how our bodies react to being low on sleep, and how our bodies react to kind of having that too much light, or that it's the blue light spectrum in the evening that can really interfere with our circadian rhythm and everything. I thought this makes it sound like ADHD kids, not able to focus and being too active in your body and stuff. And I just started thinking how many kids in our schools just need more sleep. You know what I mean? Like if all teachers could be like, homework, sleep 12 hours every night, and it actually happened, how much better would the classrooms look? Because
Right.
I know that kids are out too late and up too early. Like it is that busy lifestyle. I see little ones at the grocery store at 10 or 11 at night. Because I'm not usually at the grocery store at 10 or 11, but it's happened. And I see little teeny ones there, and I think, oh dear, that can't be good. It's way past sundown. Bethany, do you guys have any family like you said, you really try to focus on sleep and do that. Do you have any family routines or habits or kind of tricks of the trade that you could share with other parents to make sleep a priority in their households?
Yeah, something we've had to do is really be conscientious of what evening activities we do as a family.
Mm.
So we try to keep only 2 late night activities a week, maybe 3, but then we start to see the snowball effect because our kids, they can feel it.
And by
And
late night, you mean like after dinner,
yeah,
not
like nine,
not late night.
yeah, not like, yeah, yeah, meaning getting home. So getting home at 9 o'clock at night from something, the snowballs that are bedtime routine. And again, I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. They feel the sleep
Yeah.
needs more keenly, and they exhibit it in very loud ways when they don't get enough sleep.
So you know clearly that's that's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, but I think there's 2 things that I would say. One is, and I was thinking through as we were talking, one, I would encourage parents to not view adrenal health as something that's a perfection that you have to hit,
Mm,
because
good.
life is a journey, and stress happens, and it's our stressful times that write beautiful stories. So I think if we go, oh my goodness, this is stressful, don't necessarily feel like you're a failure or that I'm never going to have perfect adrenals, because they're designed to give you that flight or fight help.
Hmm.
But there is nothing more frustrating. I can tell when my adrenals are run down, because I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I won't be able to go back to sleep for
Oh,
hours. And I'll just be laying there staring at the ceiling going, this is ridiculous. What am I doing here? And
right.
so there's nothing more frustrating than being like, this is my time to sleep. Why can't I? So I would say for the person who's really struggling with sleep, trying to kickstart that good habit, trying some salt water, trying some vitamin B, that really helps calm the body and support it. And I'm always, when I'm smart, I'll remember to get up right away and take a vitamin B or drink some salt water, and I'm amazed at how it just relaxes and eases things. And it's there's not a magic pill that you can take to make you sleep. Sometimes I'll go
Mhm.
through the alphabet and think things, and then when I hit Z and I loop around, I know I know I'm tired. But
Mm.
I feel that just really finding those small ways that you recognize that your body receives help de-stressing is good.
Okay, sure. So don't be like, oh my gosh, my life is stressful. That's terrible. That's stressing me out. But just how can I adapt and react to stress and get my sleep and all that. It's so funny, like so our bodies need sleep and they fight that, or they react to that by waking up in the middle of the night and not getting sleep. Like that sounds like my children. They need sleep too.
Someone once gave me the best parenting advice for kids was sleep begets sleep, and it's so true.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. And when I say my children, my big kids are actually good sleepers, but we've never had a good sleeping baby.
Mm.
Totally off subject, but it's like my life right now. Um, so what's your response? Because I know, Lydia, you have been kind of careful to use the terms adrenal health, which is great. I like the positivity of that and not just saying like adrenal fatigue or adrenal exhaustion, but like let's just talk about how we can keep our adrenals healthy. But it can't be unmentioned that the phrase adrenal fatigue is seen a lot lately. And so what would your response be to people who say, oh, like adrenal fatigue, that's just an excuse for being really tired, or that's just kind of a fad? Like, how do you respond to that?
I temper my anger.
Uh-huh.
I
I know you were shaking your head when you were in the little box on the bottom of the screen.
know. Deep breath. Uh, so it's hard for the people who aren't there to understand the people who are.
Okay.
And I find it's usually women who are there, maybe kids. In fact, I'm seeing a lot more kids in adrenal exhaustion.
Oh.
But the mothers are feeling it the most. And hopefully they have an understanding spouse, but not always, or
Hmm.
family member, or whomever it may be, boss, whatever. I literally have seen people who can't function barely at all, and it sounds like Bethany experienced that. So it is very real. When your minerals are out of solution in your body, it affects huge systems in your body, your liver, your kidneys, your immune, everything. And you kind of can't hold on to those electrolyte minerals in the right solution when your adrenals are just exhausted. So if you look at it in terms of, minerals, let's just say potassium, for example. Potassium's really darn important, and if you don't have enough, your heart's not going to work. Okay? So most people can understand that concept. Well, when I look at hair analysis in someone who's adrenally fatigued, exhausted, they have extraordinarily low potassium. Okay? So when their potassium is that low, if they get overheated, they could pass the heck out.
Okay.
If they stand up too fast, they could get really dizzy. If they go into a building with busyness and bright lights, they could start to get like those little, light dots and
Oh, yeah.
go wonky, in their vision and blurry, because they end up getting kind of like a reactive hypoglycemia at times. So it's a big deal. It's not a small thing. Who wants to feel like that? Why would they make that up? So
Yeah.
I guess it's really hard, because when you're there, sometimes you don't have a clue why you're there and what's really going on, and so you almost feel sometimes maybe guilty that you just can't get it together.
Sure.
But it's not your fault. It is your physiology, unfortunately, and other people can't understand because it's not happening to them. So,
Right.
I would encourage you, if you're listening to this podcast and any of this rings true for you, you really probably want to get some help and get supported, so that you can recover. And I mean, when I work with clients who are feeling really bad, usually they're happy to have a report in their hands that they can show their family members and say, here, this makes sense. Read this, and then they can kind of understand a little bit better. Oh, okay, wow, all right, So it is possible to kind of help both people, the one afflicted and the one who doesn't understand,
Sure. So let me try to make sure I'm understanding something correctly. So I think I heard you say that when your adrenals are exhausted, your body's not able to hang on to the minerals you need. So so let's just keep using potassium as an example, because I noticed too that Bethany mentioned that earlier, like don't get too much potassium. And so we'd love your response on that. But also, are you saying like if I eat a banana that's rich in potassium and I'm depleted in potassium and my body needs it, but my adrenals aren't able to allow my body to even use the potassium that I'm eating, or let's say I'm supplementing, like are you saying you need to have decently healthy adrenals in order to even use the minerals you do give your body?
Not exactly. I mean,
Okay.
so some people, yeah, this is kind of almost a can of worms.
Uh-oh.
Some people, potassium may affect negatively if they have like sky high potassium or something, but really everyone needs potassium. In fact, our needs for potassium are very high. It's tough to balance the electrolyte minerals when they're really low, but we need them. We need them. In fact, sodium is another one. So when sodium's low, sodium and potassium are electrolyte minerals. And when they're both tanking out and they're really low, we need to eat those foods rich in them. But that's not going to necessarily recover our adrenal glands, but we're going to need those minerals and those nutrients. I mean, I could go into a whole big spiel here about all this, take us down a whole nother path, but to avoid going there, it's tough. It's tough to really get into this, but the electrolyte minerals are pretty darn important for the adrenally fatigued person.
Okay.
I've seen it very difficult to bring them back up. So we have to give minerals. We also have to do things to support the glands to heal. So sleep, rest, recovery. Yeah. But sometimes there's other things, you know, there might be an infection, there might be a virus, there might be a food allergy, there may be, you know, somebody who's got a mold allergy and they have mold in their home, you know, so I mean, that could be what's holding them back from improving too. So it's really complicated to kind of just say to everyone, hey, you go eat all these minerals and that'll do it. It's really,
Right.
I mean, yeah, generally speaking, the fatigued person needs salt. But that chronic stress, that alarm stage of stress person, they probably have high sodium.
Mm.
So,
Wow. Which is why it's really helpful to work with a nutritional therapist like yourself and to get the like 8 to 10 page report on what your body has in and out of balance. Fair to say,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot you can do, and people like Bethany are proof of that. You know, you can certainly do a lot to really help yourself without that, you know, and kind of implement some of the stuff we've just talked about for sure. But to get really deep in and resolve things, it takes a little bit more than just, you know, diet and sleep and stuff like that.
Yeah. So once someone, like Bethany, you mentioned that you have weak adrenals, you feel genetically. Once someone does a lot to get their adrenals built back up, are they at more risk of having like poor adrenal health? Kind of like, I mean, my husband has a family history of like horrible heart disease and early heart attack and all that stuff. So like no matter what he does, he will be at risk for certain high, you know, cholesterol and triglycerides and stuff. But so does that kind of continue to just be an ongoing battle, Bethany, for you?
I don't know. It's something because I came from such a place of depletion.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I'm kind of always mindful for. So I don't know that I have a proclivity towards it per se. It's kind of my canary in the coal mine that something's going wrong and that I need to reevaluate how I'm living life. Like when I start to see some of those symptoms come back, that tells me maybe I'm not living the talk per se. I'm starting to slip back into old habits.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, canary in the coal mine. It's kind of like the silver lining. Like I have this thing in my history, but it's going to help me be a more balanced person and just be healthier overall because I've been there and I know what to look for. I always like to end my interviews with super practical takeaway. And I'm going to totally cheat and say that everyone should just get more sleep and that's it. But honestly, I would like both of you to give our listeners something like what can they do if we kind of pretend it's National Adrenal Health Week and we're going to promote good adrenal health. How can we focus on loving our adrenals? And I have to say, you just saw the little body go by. One of my sons is apparently in his pajamas already, and it's 6 p.m. here. So we must be having an early bedtime. I don't know what's going on out there, but what would be your best advice? And we'll start with Lydia and go to Bethany for supporting being kind to your adrenals.
Well, my best advice was probably the sleep thing. So
I stole it. Sorry.
Let's go to don't skip breakfast.
Okay.
And so a lot of people will skip breakfast, or they'll rush in the morning, or they'll eat coffee and a donut. You know, so
coffee and a donut is equal to skipping breakfast. Can I assume?
Well, it's not very good for you, so it doesn't help your adrenals.
Okay.
Adrenals need, you know, protein and healthy carbs, not sugar. You know, that's not good for the adrenals. Okay. And coffee, too much coffee in some people is going to be hard on them too. So I'm not telling everyone go quit your coffee, but maybe watch how much you're drinking and stuff. But breakfast is important to start your day out right because our body kind of works on this circadian rhythm and our hormones work on the circadian rhythm. And so when you're waking up in the morning, you want to protect your blood sugar. You want to protect it from dropping too low because if it does, your adrenal glands have to come in and rescue it. And if they're already tired, you know, you're just putting more work on them.
Okay.
So I tell everyone, try to eat something, even if it's not your full breakfast, if it's just a little snack, within an hour or so of waking up, which sounds crazy sometimes, but if you are, let's say you are that adrenal fatigue person, it's going to really make a huge difference. So you want to eat a good healthy breakfast. You want protein. You want some good carbohydrate and healthy fat. Not a lot of healthy fat because sometimes that's too much for people, but a good balanced breakfast, and that will set your whole day up for better success. So I really am kind of hammering home the eat your breakfast thing. I actually post pictures on Facebook pretty regularly of my breakfast because I'm kind of on a mission to get people eating healthy breakfast again because I think it's really important. So
Okay. Well, I think that's fantastic, and I'm actually really glad that you said within an hour of waking up, because while you were talking, that was kind of my question. I mean, my husband and I both work at home, so we've been having a tendency to get up at 6 and just kind of wander into the office in our pajamas and start working, and then, we might feed the kids who are going off to school, and we might not eat our breakfast until after 8. And I do that. Sometimes that happens to my kids. Like if it's a weekend and I'm trying to get something done, I'm like, oh, they're up, they're playing together so nicely. That's so great. No one's telling me they're hungry. I'm not going to feed them yet. And then someone has a meltdown, and I go, oh, I should have fed them sooner. But
yep.
I mean, that totally makes sense, and I think that's really good to have a goal of like within an hour of waking up, have something. So, and my husband is really good at grabbing a banana, and I'm not. So, time to change my habit. So other than the sleep that I already stole, Bethany, what's like your super practical tip or tips for someone to treat their adrenals nicely this week?
I was going to say the breakfast thing, and Lydia took that.
Oh no, we're stealing them right out from under you. Are you stressed? No.
What I would, I think one other tip I would add, and it's not something we've mentioned here, but laying down is really helpful for your body, for your adrenals. So sometimes when I feel like I'm just worn down and I'm petering out, I'll lay down on the couch for 10, 15 minutes, and I feel that it just really helps to recharge. So in those times of stress, when you feel like that is just too much, try laying down. If you find that you can't take an early bedtime, at least try to get horizontal in the evenings because that can help your body to just recover and rest.
Okay, so, and now literally laying down, not just sitting there with my cup of tea or something. Like you're saying physically horizontal.
Relaxation is good, but
okay.
when you're laying down, there's from what I've studied and what I've experienced, there's just something about it that just really tends to help.
That is so interesting and so practical, and I know if I did that in the middle of the afternoon, I would be asleep. So I'm gonna have to stick with the breakfast. and maybe I keep saying that we need to try to get to bed earlier, and it doesn't actually go that well. So maybe we need an internal kitchen stewardship team sleep challenge, Bethany.
That could be good.
That could be trouble. I tell people they're not allowed to look at timestamps on my emails because I have kind of a sleep thing where I don't sleep very much. Anyway, this is not about me. This is about everyone's adrenal health that supports their whole health. And ladies, I am so grateful that you joined me for this conversation. I hope that it's really helpful. I can't imagine that it's not going to be really helpful for people out there to just, if nothing else, kind of get a mindset of how the stressors in their lives, how the busyness, how the sleep is affecting their overall health, kind of through the adrenals as a lens to look at this. And I just think it's fantastic that we had this conversation. I know on Kitchen Stewardship you can look forward to hearing about my husband's hair analysis experience with Lydia, and we're very slow at things. So we're just now, like 2 weeks after we talked to her, kind of getting our plan together about eating and sleep and supplements and all that stuff. So it's really interesting, though. It's really interesting to have a personal view of what's going on in your body kind of at that slice in time, and to have Lydia as a professional and nutritional therapist kind of talk things through about what you need. So that'll be fun to look for. And thank you again, Bethany, for sharing your story, and especially for pulling in the fact that this is an issue that can impact our children too. And so let's get those kids sleeping on time and eating good breakfast within an hour of waking up. And if they seem tired, tell them to go lay down. Tell me to go lay down. Thank you so very much, ladies. Take care.